Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about how to select the right e-commerce platform to get your retail business online. So, how do you decide which platform to choose? There's so many things to consider. You're probably thinking, what's going to be the price? What is it going to look like? The design? Is it going to be fast? Is it customizable? What about accepting payments? Because you're in a brick and mortar business and now you need to start accepting online payments. What about sales taxes? And who's going to support you? Do you feel that the e-commerce platform is going to be secure? Is there expertise that you need? Well, I'm here to make this decision really, really simple for you. So if you're just getting started in e-commerce, today, there's only two clear choices. The first is Shopify, and the second is WooCommerce. Let's break it down and see what are the differences between these two platforms. If you look at Shopify, something that really stands out to me is that it's really easy to get started. It's hosted, it's fully secure, you get lots of design templates right out of the bat. All the features that you could need as a startup are mostly included, and it helps you sell on multiple channels. So you can even get your store connected to, say, your Facebook or your Instagram accounts. It also has a great marketplace full of tons of add-on apps, which you could just pick out of the box. Many of them are also free. The most critical thing about Shopify that I think, because it's got so many features and it's hosted out of the box, it's also got very, very simple pricing. So you don't have to worry about setting up a payment gateway. It's already configured with the payment processor. And of course, because it's all connected, you're going to pay payment processor fees. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't bring your own payment processor. So if you've already got a merchant account and a payment processor, there's also a number of different options there that you can choose to connect it to another payment processor. But right out of the box, it's got payment processor fees built in. Shopify has really great support with over 1 million merchants on the platform, and a lot of great documentation and videos for anyone that's just getting started and wants to give it a shot themselves as well. So why choose WooCommerce? Well, WooCommerce is probably the most powerful open source e-commerce platform that's out there. So what's open source? Well, you have full control of WooCommerce. That does mean that it's a little harder to get started because you have to download WooCommerce and figure out where you're going to host it in your own environment, pick a hosting provider. In fact, if you pick the right hosting provider, many of them might also have kind of a pre-configured WooCommerce that you could get started with. But being open source doesn't mean that you don't have access to a lot of pre-existing things. In fact, even WooCommerce is full of design templates, and because it's open source, it's got a big community of developers and you can work with them. And there's also a lot of extensions that you can use, very similar to the Shopify App Store. The thing that's interesting about WooCommerce is that it's free. So you're not actually paying for WooCommerce itself, although you will start paying as you configure more add-ons to your WooCommerce. But out of the box, WooCommerce is free, and then you pay for the payment fees depending on whichever payment provider you decide to plug in. So you definitely want to take a look at the payment rates between these two platforms. WooCommerce has a great community, as I mentioned, so you're not the only one that's using it. Lots of great help out there and other merchants that are going to be able to help you as well. Because it's, again, open source, it's fully customizable. You can connect it and integrate it with a lot of different things. And just like Shopify, there's a lot of really good documentation and videos. So these are the two main platforms, but really, how do you decide? There's still seemingly a lot of different choices. So I'm going to keep it really, really simple. I think the way that you decide is based on two simple factors. If you want something that's easy right out the gate and you're just getting started in e-commerce, it's your first e-commerce store, hands down, go with Shopify. It's easy, it's hosted, the payments are built in, you can get your products set up and updated very quickly. Shopify will be your choice. If you, on the other hand, want a little bit more control, Maybe you like doing a little bit of coding yourself. Maybe you work with a web developer that already knows a lot about e-commerce and knows how to use WooCommerce. Then maybe WooCommerce is a better choice because you'll have a lot more control and it's open source. So those are the two kind of key platforms, and that's how I would recommend that you decide between the two. Now, you're probably wondering, what about BigCommerce? Because BigCommerce is also really popular out there. Unfortunately, it's just not as popular as Shopify, which is why BigCommerce doesn't come up as much in conversations. Also, BigCommerce has recently shifted a lot of their focus towards their enterprise product. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in this video. But really, the BigCommerce product that you want to look at is BigCommerce Essentials. The BigCommerce Essentials product is very similar to Shopify. It's very similar in pricing. In fact, it has a lot more features out of the box. So there's probably some things like, if you want to sell digital products and you want to sell services and physical goods, you have a lot of different variants, the number of different discounts that you can do in BigCommerce. These are all things that you get out of the box with BigCommerce, but you're likely going to need some add-ons if you're going to go with Shopify. There's also built-in order editing capability, which you're going to need some additional features in Shopify to enable those. Now, when it comes to community and an app store, BigCommerce has a smaller app store. It's not very popular and there's not a lot of extensions in there compared to Shopify or a WooCommerce, but BigCommerce is a really good choice. And I would say if you're going to go with a hosted platform, definitely give BigCommerce a look, but it's really just comes down to a matter of personal taste. So the other thing, the other sort of aspect of this now is, what if you're a more established business and you're doing more than $5 million of revenue? That's about the threshold that I think you want to start looking at other alternatives beyond a Shopify or WooCommerce. Not that those platforms can't handle it, but you'll probably run across features or capabilities that are just going to be somewhat limiting with those platforms. So if you're over 5 million in revenue, or in fact, if you take a look at the screen, there's a few different choices here in terms of why you might want to choose a different platform here. For omni-channel sellers, especially those that are going to have their businesses very well connected between their e-commerce and their retail locations, if you need extensive integrations with a lot of different third-party tools and you want full access to the APIs, you're concerned about security, you want to maybe bring things in-house or have the shopping platform hosted in your own private environment, you're looking for more high performance. If you're selling globally, you're doing wholesale or B2B, those would be the reasons to consider one of these three other platforms. So for me, the top three contenders when you're looking at a $5 million plus sort of enterprise or a mid-market business is BigCommerce, Magento, or Shopify. I'm not going to go into these in much detail today. We'll be happy to set up another video in the future series to talk about these enterprise platforms, but there's also a lot of resources online. So if you just look up BigCommerce versus Shopify, or you look at Magento versus Shopify, you'll find a lot of useful articles online that'll help you compare sort of apples to apples. But most importantly, if you're doing over 5 million, I just strongly recommend picking up the phone and talking to these companies, creating a good checklist of features that you need for your business, and then kind of match up against each of these providers. And also make sure you're getting the right level of support and you're thinking about the launch timeline for your project. I want to end with one more thing. So what about the other platforms that are out there? If you talk about like a Wix or a Squarespace, a GoDaddy, these guys have hundreds of thousands of companies that are hosted on these platforms. So when should you select these? Well, really not powered for e-commerce. So they're not designed for an e-commerce business, but that doesn't mean that you can't use them. So if you're already on a Wix platform or your website's already on Squarespace or GoDaddy, that's the only reason what I would recommend if you're just getting started and you want to plug those things into your existing website. That would be my sort of recommendation on why you would select any one of these platforms. There's definitely a lot of design templates because these platforms were designed really well for websites. And I like to think of these as just great for starters. So now that you've selected your e-commerce platform, You're probably also thinking about marketplaces. Well, marketplaces are great because you get free traffic. Of course, you pay for that in terms of fees when you actually make a sale, but you get a lot of free traffic. And unfortunately, because you have a lot of free traffic and you're also competing with other sellers, you have to be really creative about your strategies there. And on marketplaces, you are going to play by their rules. So you have limited control over what you can sell, how you can describe it. The pricing is also really a factor there. So a lot of different choices out there for marketplaces that we'll cover in another video. I hope this was helpful for you. That's all we have for today, guys. Thank you for joining and happy selling.